You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to today's podcast. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Hey man, happy Monday to you. It's coming up on July 4th, so all of our U.S. listeners are probably headed to the grocery store to go buy hopefully grass-fed burgers for this week. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I said everybody's probably headed out to go buy hopefully grass-fed burgers for July 4th week.
I know, it's 4th of July coming up, man. I got grass-fed burgers, trying to get some more pasture-fed pork if I can. Going to do it up really good with some smoked ribs, some good grass-fed burgers. Going to keep it real. Really excited, man. How about you?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't even have a grill. I do so much cooking, but I do it usually all on my skillet. So I may need to borrow a grill to make a grass-fed burger.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I'm excited here. We talked about addressing a talk on the immune system, on the TH1, TH2 kind of branch of the immune system. And this is kind of a heady topic just because the immune response is more of an effect, not necessarily a cause. So a lot of people, they kind of look at like TH1, TH2, that they look at it all and they kind of it's hard for them to wrap their head around it. And they get so focused on the TH1, TH2, the immune system stuff, but that is more of an effect. And we have the cause, maybe other infections or stressor that are pushing that immune system out of balance. It's kind of like you got two kids of different sizes jumping on a seesaw. Well, obviously the bigger kid goes to the bottom, the lighter kid goes up. You could be sitting there so focused on why is that seesaw doing it, but it's like, well, you got a bigger kid going up against a smaller kid. Like that, it's not the seesaw, right? So when we go over this topic, I just want everyone to look at it with eyes that are looking at the root cause. Like, what's the root cause? And don't get overwhelmed with all of the extra details that we'll be addressing.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the TH1, TH2 in regards to autoimmunity. So we were looking at all these studies and it gets really deep, really quick. But when we look at, for example, Hashimoto's, which is a really common autoimmune thyroid issue, that one is going to be related to TH1 dominance. And then also, what were the others we found here?
Well, let's break it up for people. So we have these various T cells, okay? These T cells can differentiate or mature into different kinds of T cells. So we have our thymus, which is like right here in this chest bone area, and we can make these various T cells. And they can differentiate the TH1, the TH2, TH17, or these T regulatory cells, okay? The big ones that we're going to focus on are TH1, TH2. So what influences these cells and what direction they go in typically are going to be various inflammatory mediated compounds. So the ones that are going to push TH1 are going to be interferon and then tumor necrosis factor alpha. So just kind of ignore the big stuff. Just know that there's some inflammatory compounds that cause this T cell response on the TH1. Now, TH1 is going to be it's going to be your cytotoxic immune response. So think of T1 as like, this is your immediate reaction. This is like, hey, we're going to war. This is the special forces. This is the Navy SEALs. This is the Delta team. This is the Army Rangers. These are the people that you want going into that territory first, right? They are the first responders. Now, the big things that can influence TH1 are going to be various interleukins and cytokines, all right? Interleukins could be, interleukin 6. It could be interleukin 4. It can be interleukin 5 or 10 or 13. And these are various cytokines that are produced, and they could be produced due to inflammation from whatever's happening in the environment. So TH1's that part. Or I'm sorry, TH1 is going to be the TNF alpha and the interferon. The TH2 is going to be the other ones I just mentioned. That's the interleukin 6, the 5, the 4, the 13, and the 10. So we have kind of backup TH1, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and then interferon, TH2 are all going to be the interleukins and the cytokines. So just kind of draw that line in your head. TH1 is going to be the cytotoxic immediate immune response. TH2 will be the delayed immune response. Think of food allergens driving this. Think of anything that's more antibody based. These are the troops that are coming late to the show. These are the infantry that's coming, a couple of weeks after the Army Rangers and the Navy SEALs have done their intel and done their initial strike. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So you mentioned the food allergies. And then if someone is TH2 dominant, now there's different causes of this, right? Like you and I work a lot with the gut issues. So we're seeing a lot of bacterial infections. We see a lot of parasites, a lot of viral infections. It's not 100% crystal clear, but in general, we found most of the bacterial infections, those are going to increase your TH1. And if you're more TH2 dominant, these are more the food allergies, the people with histamine issues. Now, a lot of people I've noticed with Lyme and co-infections and mold, they also complain of tons of histamine issues. So it would make sense based on what we found in the literature, what we've seen clinically, which is that people with mold, Lyme, co-infections, these are the ones who report histamine intolerance, where they have to go on a lower histamine diet. And then we try to use things to stabilize the histamine reaction, like herbal antihistamines. And sometimes these people are already put on antihistamines from their medical doctor or their allergist, but really that's an immune system problem that the drugs are not addressing.
100%. So just kind of like recap, TH1, kind of more immediate type of response. That's where you're seeing a lot of the nuclear factor kappa beta. That's where you're seeing the interferon, the TNF alpha, and then the TH2 are all these various cytokines and interleukins, right? TH2, they're making a lot more antibodies. It's making all those IgG. It could even be the IgE, the more anaphylactic ones. And these are kind of making those long-term antibodies to help attack whatever is going on. So a lot of autoimmune conditions, we may see TH2 response, and a lot of chronic ones like fibromyalgia and a lot of these issues, we could see that chronic fatigue, a lot of asthma issues, hay fever, a lot of these long-term conditions that are hanging out a lot longer, we may see these TH2 things. Now, couple articles we've seen, TH1 tends to be more intracellular parasites, smaller bugs. TH2 dominance can be pushed up by bigger bugs or extracellular bugs that are hanging outside the red blood cells. Outside the red blood cells, bigger bugs, they're bigger. They're not inside the blood cell. The smaller, more microscopic ones, kind of like a malaria or babesia, they're going to be inside the red blood cell. Cryptosporidium is another one that's going to be more TH1 dominant. So smaller critters, TH1, slightly bigger critters, and ones that hang out outside of the red blood cell, TH2. So when we kind of go over like the science stuff, like I'm just kind of drawing a line here. Science stuff, heady, okay? Then we got to focus on the root cause. So when we see there may be some immune imbalances, right? TH1, whether you have more TH1 symptoms or you have more TH2 symptoms, or whether we actually do a test to look at your TNF alpha or your interferon, or whether we actually look at various interleukins and cytokines, we can look at this stuff. We can test it, which can give us a little bit of a window on what direction we should be pushing the immune system. Sometimes we don't even have to push the immune system. We just work on the stressors, the infections, the food, and the gut. And a lot of times that immune balance kind of just naturally goes back to where it wants to be, because the body wants to be in homeostasis. So we don't necessarily have to go and say, well, this mushroom supports TH1, therefore I'm going to give this mushroom. We may just want to be focused on the actual infections or those stressors that could be affecting it, and then let homeostasis kind of naturally happen on its own.
Yeah, I've got a test kit actually upstairs. I haven't run it yet. I didn't know if you know this, but Diagnostic Solutions actually has a cytokine. It's sort of a pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory balance test that you can do. And I believe it's all based on serum. But I've got it upstairs. I haven't taken it yet, but I'll put this in the chat for you. Other people won't see it, but in our chat, I'll put it there. And you can look at this sample report. It's pretty cool. So it looks at all like the pro-inflammatory cytokines. So it's got like your interleukin 18, which we know that one's tied into Hashimoto's, for example, and it gives you an expected reference range. TNF alpha is pro-inflammatory. It's got IL-6, it's got IL-7, IL-8, and then it goes into the anti-inflammatory, which is pretty cool. So the anti-inflammatory, they're kind of generalizing it here as putting pro-inflammatory TH1, anti-inflammatory TH2. So you can see here, interleukin 4, 5, 10, 13, 15 is all in the anti-inflammatory category. Did you see that sample report?
Correct.
That's pretty cool. So I should do it. Now, does it really change much though? See, that's the question with things like this, right? Like we could spend days and days and days trying to get to the bottom of this and figure out, okay, what are your T helper cells doing? Is your cytokine balance off? But if you don't have a foundation to go back on, then you're really confused with this information. So I find that people may focus on a topic like this, but then they get lost in the science and they don't really know how to make an action step based on it.
100%, right? So TH1, TH2, these things are going to differentiate. They're going to go, you have our T cells, and they're going to go one to two directions for the most part, TH1, TH2. And in that process where they differentiate, that's where all these cytokines or interleukins or TNF alpha or all these inflammatory things happen. So think of a lot of the cytokines or interleukins or TNF alpha or nuclear factor kappa beta or interferon. Think of that as like the exhaust of the immune response. So you have these two vehicles driving in certain directions, and these cytokines are going to be the exhaust. So when we go and run a test like Evan talked about with all these different interleukins or cytokines, it gives you a window of what cells are more active. Just like if you're trying to smell the exhaust to see, is that a diesel car? Is that a race car? Is that an unleaded? You can kind of tell a little bit by just smelling some of that fuel. It's the same thing here. And then that gives us more of a clinical window to say, well, how do we get to the root cause? Because we know things like gluten can easily throw off that immune response. We may be sitting here thinking about, what kind of infections can we go after? But we may magically be able to support someone's immune balance just by stabilizing blood sugar. We know blood sugar can increase. Imbalances or fluctuations in blood sugar could increase interleukin 6. Interleukin 6 is going to be a TH2 immune response. So we could jack up our TH2 immune system by just having big fluctuations in blood sugar, or gluten sensitivity could be something that really increases that TH2 immune response. So it may be something that's not that sexy. It's not like this crazy infection you have. It just could be some blood sugar stuff. It could be a gluten sensitivity thing. Also, we know low glutathione is a big stressor too, because glutathione is a natural kind of regulator of the TH1, TH2. So that's going to have a major effect on our T regulatory cells. The T regulatory cells, they're kind of the governor that can come in there and kind of tip it and bring it back to balance, right? So think of lower glutathione as a master balancer. Think of lower vitamin D as a massive master balancer. So if we have poor digestion, and we're not breaking down proteins well, or we're like a vegan vegetarian and we're not getting enough good, clean sulfur amino acids, well, this could be a stressor for our immune system. Or if we're not getting enough vitamin D, whether supplementally or we're not getting outside, that could be a big stressor because your vitamin D has a major effect on our T regulatory cells. And our T regulatory cells, they just come in there and they help modulate and balance the immune response. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're spot on. I'm looking at the lab right in front of me. They're talking here about the different type of T helpers. And they say right here, T regulatory, the normal role of it is to limit inflammatory responses, which is exactly what you said. The T regulatory is the balancing act. and it's promoting what they call immunotolerance. And it says here, if you have an issue or an imbalanced T regulatory cell problem, then that's when the autoimmune diseases come in, and that's when inflammatory bowel diseases come in.
And that's why when we like run a lot of organic acid tests, we'll look at certain markers like sulfate, or we'll look at pyroglutamate or alpha hydroxybutyrate. We'll look at a lot of these organic acids that correlate to our glutathione precursors, because this is important. If we aren't able to have enough of these glutathione precursors, that could have a major effect on our immune system, right? That's really important. Also, if we're seeing just poor hypomethylation, right? If we're not getting adequate levels of B12 or folate and we're hypomethylating, right? Low levels of methylation, we may see an increased amount of homocysteine. We may see higher amounts of methylmalonic acid or 4-aminoglutamate. And remember, methylation is important because methylation silences genes. So if we have these genes that are going to be, like, let's say genes that are going to be predispose us to diseases or conditions, we want to be able to silence them. So having good methylation with a lot of those nutrients is important to silencing those genes. So really, really important that we have good methylation, because that plays a huge role in all of this.
So you can test this. I'm going to do it just for fun because I've got the test kit. If you want to measure the immune system, it looks like, I mean, we love diagnostic solutions for a lot of the other testing that we do with them. I've not run this yet, but this is the whole cytokine assessment, which is all looking at the T helper cells, the TH1, TH2, T regulatory. I'm going to do it and report back on what it shows, because one thing it says here, just back to the TH2 dominance thing quickly, if you're TH2 dominant, we talked about food allergies, seasonal allergies. You mentioned hay fever and other things. It also says here chemical sensitivities, which I definitely have an increased chemical sensitivity problem since I got exposed to mold and possibly Lyme and or co-infections from tick bites. That may be a driver of the chemical sensitivity thing too. So what I'm curious to see is, on a piece of paper, am I going to show up really high with these TH2 ones they're talking here, interleukin 4, 5, 6, 10, 13? If so, there's the answer. But as we discussed, it doesn't really change the protocol much. It's good data, but I'm still going to do the same things, like do infrared sauna and do charcoal and binders and excess glutathione supplementation, like you said, and making sure I'm digesting.
Yeah, and when we decided on doing this topic, it's an important topic as people are talking about it. But if you're coming into this and you have health challenges and you're listening to this and you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry about it. This is not the cause. This is the effect. It's important that you have a good functional medicine doc that can look at the root cause, but then maybe can take some of this data into account. So we're not going to base our whole treatment plan off of it, but it's just kind of a guide, like a compass. Say, hey, am I moving in the right direction? Okay, good, excellent. I'm moving in the right direction. So it kind of gives you that confidence and ability. Also, we were talking about low methylation. Well, low methylation is also correlated with TH2 dominance. So when we have that immune response, those antibody immune responses that are high, we tend to see low methylation. So you see this a lot in allergies, asthma, autism is a big one, mucus, eczema, hives. You're going to see it actually in chronic fatigue as well. So these are conditions we got to keep an eye on. But methylation is very important. So we got to look at, so when we run a lot of organic acid testing, we can get a window into some of these root cause stuff before it trickles down and affects the immune system. So I'm still a huge fan of the organic acid testing because it gives me a little bit more of a window to the root of what's happening versus the downstream interleukin and cytokines and TNF alpha and interferon, which I think is more of a downstream trickle.
I agree. Well, I just want to restate what you said a little differently because it was interesting, which is that the hypomethylation is going to affect and make you more TH2 dominant. And I would say, I mean, you tell me if it's different with your clients, but I would say 50+% of the people we're working with, they come and say, hey, I tested my genetics and I have methylation issues. And I am, MTHFR with my genetics, and I have 1 SNP or 2 SNPs, and I can't methylate properly. And these are the same people who come to us with tons of food allergies. They feel like they can only eat limited food supply, et cetera. I think this whole methylation TH2 conversation is huge, and I don't think we've ever talked about this before.
Yeah, Totally. And then again, typically bacterial and viral infections are going to be more TH1 dominant. And that makes sense, right? Because that's your natural killer cells. That's going to be your helper cells. These are the guys that are coming out to the party first. So it makes sense if I get exposed to an acute virus or an acute bacteria that TH1 immune response is really, really important. And then also people that have a TH1 response that's really, really high, they tend to make more cortisol, right? So when you have chronically high cortisol, you may actually see a decrease in that TH1 immune response. So this makes sense, right? Because think about it. If you have really low cortisol, that's going to suppress your TH1 response, which may make it easier for you to get cold and get sick. So this is why we want really good TH1 immune response, and chronically low cortisol could have an effect on that. So
Makes sense.
The typical adrenal fatigue, or I like it, adrenal dysfunction type of imbalances could create a lower TH1 immune response and could cause you to get sick more. So just getting your cortisol levels supported and then getting to the root cause of that could have a major effect on supporting your TH1.
Yep, which is why we test it. So you can look at doing urine, you can look at doing saliva. You mentioned the organic acids, that's a urine test. The saliva is what I use. I think you use mostly urine though now, don't you? For the
Yeah, I've been doing more of the urine just because I get a window into the free and the total cortisol. I still love the saliva. It's still great, but it misses the total fraction, which is nice to see.
Okay. So you still have to get your foundational test. What we've talked about was kind of like a level like beyond what you typically need to do. This is like above and beyond the foundations. You and I don't really say when we're working with someone, hey, we're addressing your TH1 and TH2 imbalances. Like, I don't think I've ever said that ever, maybe a couple times, but really what we're doing is we're fixing that, as you mentioned, the downstream effect. That's what this is. This is the downstream stuff we're dealing with, but we're fixing that indirectly by focusing on the root causes. So getting rid of the bacteria and viruses that are throwing the immune system the wrong way, getting rid of parasites that are shifting it the wrong way, lowering thyroid antibodies by healing the gut, replenishing vitamin D, replenishing glutathione to move out toxins and molds and other things that are disrupting this balance. So you have to do that.
Exactly. So think of like acute cortisol. Acute cortisol could actually bump up the TH1, could stimulate it, but chronic adrenal stimulation that eventually decreases the cortisol via getting the brain feedback loop dysregulated. That's called HPA axis dysregulation. That is going to actually weaken the immune system. So just kind of think of it like this. Does chronic stress make your immune system weaker or stronger? Most people can wrap their head around the fact that it's going to make it weaker. And then we're just talking about that mechanism. It's really going to be dysregulating that TH1 immune response for sure.
Yep. Well said.
Anything else you want to address here today? I mean, so did we list out kind of the major symptoms for TH1? I know I did it for TH2, right? That was going to be nasal drip, mucus, allergies, hay fever, hives, chronic fatigue, a lot of autism stuff. Think hypomethylation, a lot of allergy-based stuff. And then we have the TH1 stuff that's more TH1 dominant. You're going to see that Graves, Sjogren's. You're going to see lupus. You're going to see, I even think Hashimoto's is going to be TH1 dominant. Anything else you want to say about the TH1 dominant conditions?
Yeah, it seems like the TH1 problems are more autoimmune related, where TH2 are more, I don't want to overgeneralize, but TH2 sounds more related to histamine allergy type problems.
Histamine allergy kind of thing. So RA, Hashimoto's, a lot of irritable bowel conditions, T3, lower T3 conversion issues, TH1, MS. I think MS may actually be TH2. I think lupus may have a TH2 connection. So with the research, like nothing's 100%, right? There are some nuance to it. Vitiligo, autoimmune condition affecting the skin, that's going to be TH1. Lyme can be TH1, but chronic Lyme can potentially switch to TH2. So there's a couple of variations with that. Also, this is really cool, and this is part of why I utilize pregnenolone in a lot of my patients, a lot of my adrenal patients, is because a lot of these autoimmune conditions that are TH1 dominant, they tend to have lower pregnenolone. And it makes sense because the more your pregnenolone drops, the more your immune system tends to be dysregulated, right? So the more that TH1 tends to be up, that can deplete your pregnenolone. And then the longer that TH1 is up, eventually that immune response can drop too. So you could still be TH1 dominant, but the immune system starts to get weaker and weaker and weaker. It's kind of like estrogen dominance. You can be estrogen dominant while still having low estrogen, right? I see it all the time. So it's all about the balance. And we know the adrenals interplay here significantly. We know gluten and gut barrier function interplay, and we know infections interplay. So if all this stuff isn't making sense, just focus on the root cause, and then the immune imbalances should just take care of itself naturally.
That's amazing. So the pregnenolone, that's considered kind of the master, right? So when you throw in pregnenolone, you're saying you're allowing the body to go and generate whatever other hormones it needs to from just giving pregnenolone.
Exactly. And again, if your people are listening to this, pregnenolone is like an adrenal precursor that's like can make about 27 different adrenal hormones. You want to remember though, you want to have your levels tested and you want to do it the right way. So work with a practitioner on that and make sure you're getting to the root cause. It's easy for someone to listen to this and say, well, I'm going to just take pregnenolone, but you may be ignoring how you got here. Right. So pregnenolone taken with the eye to getting all the other root cause things under control. That's the best functional medicine perspective to address it.
Beautiful. Well, reach out to Justin if you need help with this stuff. We know we got a little, as you called it, heady, a little complex with this stuff. It can get complex, but at the end of the day, you just have to address the root causes. But how do you do that? Well, you have to find them first. And so that's why we do comprehensive testing. Depending on what the symptoms are, we may look at different things like stool, urine, saliva, blood, depending on what's going on. If someone promises or sells you a silver bullet to fix your chronic health issues, they're wrong. I would run away. There is no silver bullet. All these people that say, oh, everything is Lyme disease or everything is Epstein-Barr virus or everything is this. No, nothing is that simple. It's always multiple layers or different pieces of the puzzle. I mean, I've been working on myself with herbs and gut and adrenals and immune and all sorts of stuff for 10 years. And I'm still in the game. I'm still going. Exactly. So you got to just keep peeling back these layers.
And we'll put some of the references here in the article so you guys can take a look at some of the references if you want to digest it slower. We'll put some pictures in here as well. And I'm going to do a little summary video that'll be shorter with a little bit of drawings and stuff to help kind of guide you through the understanding of what's happening. So if it's too much for anyone or you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry. We'll try to break it down. We'll put some pictures, some images, some references, and just kind of have a mind to focusing on the root cause.
Yep. Websites, if you want to reach out to Justin, he can help you around the world. JustinHealth.com. Just go there and you can find the appointments and you can book yourself on his calendar. My website's evanbrand.com. We really look forward to helping you address whatever concerns you have. There's a whole list of different symptoms, conditions, etc. on our website. So you can look through that and see if we are compatible with each other.
And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get some of these summary videos after the fact if you guys are enjoying it. JustinHealth.com/YouTube and EvanBrand.com/YouTube as well. Evan, hey man, it's been great. You have a phenomenal 4th of July if we don't connect till after that point. And today was great, man. Really appreciate it.
You too. Take care.
Have a good one, Evan. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.